I believe the feet is. I don't think these people know what that means. Can I get a witness? Are you ready to fight? Are you willing to bleed? Ready to bleed.
What's up, everyone? Hey, I'm TC Cook with Power the Community, brought to you by the Powerhouse. Our goal with this show is just to introduce you to people who have and are making an impact in their community. We hope their journey shows you that where you are today is not where you have to stay. Man, our guest here today is Washington Hatchet alum who went on to graduate from Indiana University Kelley School of Business with a Bachelor's of Science in Business and majoring in accounting. After graduating, he got his feet wet in accounting as an internal auditor for a local bank and a staff accountant for a regional accounting firm. However, in 1998, his father, Ken, started Parsons and Associates, and he came along from the journey. Ken started the company on simple but true values to provide professional service on a personal level. Now, with the passing of his father, our guest has become the president and is tasked with continuing those same values for years to come. Guys, please welcome Pete Parsons. Hey, Pete, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, it's great to be here, Trace.
Hey, first and foremost, obviously with all kinds of stuff going on, how's your family? Everybody good? Everybody staying healthy?
Well, it's been an interesting several weeks. We got the kids e-learning upstairs, which has been fun. Homeschooling, I guess, is different for the Parsons. My wife, Kim, finally got back to work. She's a dentist, so she started back a little bit yesterday. She's got a little bit more of a schedule today, and then she's going to try to get back to as normal as she can starting on Monday. Our office has been just a complete challenge during this period of time. Tax returns extended, payments extended, stimulus checks, payroll protection programs, just trying to help as many people as we can.
Yeah, you guys are staying busy.
It's been crazy.
Yeah. Hey, let's dive in here a little bit, Pete. I want to kind of go back some. We like to kind of journey from kind of a younger age all the way up to where you're at today, right? So let's go back a little bit to 15-year-old Pete, right? You're at Washington, am I correct with that?
That's true.
Sitting there. So where'd you kind of grow up? Kind of what part of town, and what does your family look like when you were 15?
Well, obviously, I had mom and dad. Dad was a CPA, as you mentioned. My mom was a school teacher. I have a younger sister. We grew up on the east side of town, out by the park. My days were spent. I love to play golf, so I got my first few jobs were mowing at the golf course, doing whatever I can there, hanging out with friends. Play a little bit of tennis. I mean, a little bit. Stopped growing, so I played basketball for a little bit, but stopped there. Went to obviously to high school here at Washington. Had a great time there. Was fortunate to have a pool, so we got to swim. Got to spend some summers outside and just kind of hanging out. I guess what I would say now is not a care in the world.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. So if I walked into your 8th grade classroom, okay, and I'm a substitute teacher walking in and I see Pete Parsons, what do I think of when I see you, and even on through the class there?
You know, I think I was a good kid. I was in honors classes, which was good, but it seemed like I always got in trouble for talking to the people around me. So I was kind of social back then and social now, which kind of stinks being stuck in my basement and not being able to talk to anybody today, but kind of had some really close friends, but then could probably just kind of hang out with about everybody. I don't think I would not give substitute teachers much problem. So
it's really funny because the trend that's been happening since we started this show is everybody so far has gotten in trouble for talking too much. That's kind of been the number one thing.
Mrs. Vaughn was my freshman and junior algebra teacher, and I was always turned around. Parsons, turn around. So that was kind of my MO.
Yeah. I always got the check or the X, whichever one teachers got on talks too much. Yeah, I definitely did that. So your dad was a CPA, but he didn't own his own firm at that point. Is that right, or did he?
He did. My dad left. He was with a local firm until about 1982, and then kind of went out on his own. And from 1982, had brought some partners in, and then in 1998, I came back from Champaign, Illinois, and started working with he and Randy Stahl. And in 2000, Randy and Dad Randy had some other things going on, so he left, and it was me and my dad's firm from 2000 on.
Gotcha. Now, let's go a little bit fast forward here. So you're in school, Dad's a CPA, you're in high school. Did you think then that, like, you know what, I kind of see what Dad does, I kind of like it, maybe I need to go into that, or when did that thought even hit your brain?
I had, when I was 24 years old, I got to work at Chrysalis. And I was 25, 26 at the time, and I had to give the single life talk, which is a fun talk to give. So I went back to my senior yearbook, and I said, hey, you know, what was I thinking about back in 1988? And in 1988, I said that I wanted to be an attorney living in New York City and driving a Mercedes. Okay. And when I was giving that single life talk, I was single, a banker living in the basement of my parents' house, driving a Monte Carlo. So my aspirations as a senior in high school were a little bit different than what they were going forward. I think, although, you know, going back when I always enjoyed what my dad did. I don't remember my dad being gone. I mean, tax season's kind of challenging, and it seems like we work a bunch, but I don't remember him not being around. Math had always made sense to me. Accounting made sense to me. So it was kind of a natural fit. Didn't know how I was going to get there, but it kind of worked out that way. Went to IU, looked at a lot of different things when I was at IU. Made some poor decisions while I was at IU, which caused me to take another year at Indianapolis, and then got my accounting degree, passed the CPA exam, came back to Washington, and I've been blessed ever since. Well, I've been blessed my whole life. So
right. So you're a senior and you're thinking of big time, big city attorney. Where did that thought even come close to getting in your mind?
I don't know. I mean, I think I would think that a lot of people, when they're in Washington, they're thinking, man, I can't wait to get out of here. You know, I'm going to go somewhere and do something big. Actually, when I was younger, I thought about politics, and man, I would never want to be in that today. But attorney would lead into that. So I think that was probably a thing. Wrote a paper in 8th grade on John F. Kennedy. So, I mean, he was kind of again, not knowing anything about John F. Kennedy back then, just knowing him as this president that stopped the missile crisis and had done some good things as a nation, and not knowing like his backstory. Right. But those kind of just some thoughts that probably led to an attorney. New York City was, I mean, again, where else would you want to be? Yeah. And then, yeah, but I think as you grow older and not as everybody, but as I've grown older and more mature, I just love people, and I love to talk to people. When I was in Champaign, that was the one thing I missed. I mean, I had friends, but there was no place that you just knew people. You know, I love the fact that I could walk down the main street, Washington, Indiana, and know people and say hello and know their history and know who they are and have relationships with them. And to be able to go to the White Steamer and just walk in and find a table that's people you know and sit down and just have a conversation. That's just what I love to do. And I couldn't get that in, Washington is just a great place for that. Yeah.
So you decide, at what point, was it your senior year, that you'd already kind of said, you know what, IU is probably where I want to go, or when did that even start?
My dad went to IU. My mom went to IU. So I did a couple college visits, went to IU as a visit. Obviously that's a place. And then a buddy of mine had applied to DePaul. So I got applied to DePaul, got accepted to DePaul, really wanted to go to DePaul. And Dad said, well, you can either go to IU and I'll pay for it, or you can go to DePaul and you can pay for it. Well, that made the decision pretty easy. And again, love Bloomington, great place, great friends. Still keep in contact. There's a group of guys that I still keep in contact with that are from, one's in North Carolina, one's in Indianapolis, one's in North Webster, Indiana, and we got together last year and just to hang out and play golf. So Bloomington was a great place for me.
So your dad has definitely, I mean, been known just as a hard worker, and he definitely was well known in the community. So was that some stuff? And you talked about like your first jobs, even throughout high school and stuff, mowing and stuff. Did your dad kind of push you for that? Your mom's a hard worker too. I don't want to shade her at all either, because she's a very passionate and hardworking person. I'm sure it was easier to see that growing up, but did they kind of push you into that way? Did they kind of say, hey, it's time for you to go get a job? Or did you just say, I need some extra cash?
I do think I just needed some extra cash. But I think all my buddies worked too. I mean, my best friend cleaned at McDonald Chevrolet. Another good friend worked at IGA. And we just did that when we were in high school. I remember I actually got to stock shelves at Kmart for a winter, I think, for Mr. Brewer. But the golf course was always, I mean, that's where I grew up, and it made sense to me. And I would get up in the morning, and Dennis was my boss, and he'd put me on a mower on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. I'd go out and mow collars and tees, and I just took pleasure in making sure that the stripes were straight, and I just wanted to make the golf course look nice. Didn't really like weed eating, but that was part of the job. Again, I think that was probably something that my dad instilled in me, though, when I was young. That when we had chores every day, you had to make sure that the wood tray was full. During the summers, it seemed like I was always pulling weeds out of rocks or pulling weeds out of the garden, sweeping the pool, doing dishes. Just what was expected. And I think but that came from my mom and dad. But I think dad grew up on a farm, and if he wouldn't have been an accountant, we would have been farmers. And I'm glad we're accountants instead of farmers.
Right. Yeah, I think you're doing a good job at it. That's for sure. So we're fast forwarding now into college. You're at IU. This is probably, I mean, I'm guessing you guys maybe had some vacations here and there, so you might have been able to see the country. Some people, go off to college and it's like a whirlwind because it's something brand new. But how was college life? You said you kind of made some mistakes there, so I'm guessing you might have fell into some of the college things, right?
I don't want to talk about too much here. But I made some great friends.
Yeah.
And I think college is really twofold. I mean, I think college, one, is education. I mean, going there to learn, to do something, to get out of like your area. I think college is also something that says, hey, I can finish something. I don't know if it's necessarily the degree that you get. I think for some degrees, for some occupations, you need a certain degree, engineering, accountant, doctors. But I think a lot about what a degree from college is that, hey, I can start something and I can finish it. And I think that's to me, I think that's part of it. But man, some of the experiences I got to, for my freshman and sophomore year, I got to march for the Marching 100 in Bloomington, which was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. Met some, again, great people there. Lived in the dorm for a couple of years. Then my junior and senior year, I lived in varsity villas, and my junior year was the year that the varsity villas had the riots during Little Five. So it was crazy times. My neighbor's car got turned over. Just things you remember from 20 some years ago. But there was a point that it changed my life. I was the Kelley School of Business in Bloomington was one of the best in the country, and I wasn't going to get in there. So I had to my beginning of my senior year at IU, I changed majors and actually transferred to Indianapolis to finish my accounting degree, and that was another great decision. Went up there and lived with my cousin for a year and a half. Got my accounting degree, IU, and I think that kind of set my my life on the path that it is today. It was a hard decision. I remember calling mom and dad saying, "Hey, mom, I'm transferring," and again, they said, "Well, whatever you need to do." So I mean, just very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Although again, my dad was like, "Okay, I paid for the first 4 years, you get to pay for the fifth." So it was because of my lack of discipline and obedience, or discipline. I probably I spent an extra year in school.
Gotcha. Yeah. Your dad's farming values tend to come out quite a bit through that story, with the hard work and just kind of owning up and taking responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you graduate, and somehow instead of coming back home completely, you end up in Illinois at some point.
Well, first thing I did is I came home and got to work at People's Bank, which is now German American Bank. I started as an internal auditor, and Joe Wellman asked me on a golf course league. He said, "Hey, Pete, we've got an opening here." I said, "Would you want to interview him?" "Sure, I'd love to interview." Didn't think I wanted to be in banking, but it was a start. But I also think that by starting at People's Bank, it allowed me to be Pete Parsons instead of Ken Parsons' son. So I spent about hired in the fall of '94. Then worked for People's Bank as the internal auditor for 2 years. Learned a lot. Met a lot of people. Got to be in front of a lot of people. I reported to the board of directors, not within the bank. Then December of 1996, German American bought People's Bank, which I got to meet with Mark Schrader, and he said, "Hey, well, we don't need an internal auditor here in Davis County in Washington, but we need somebody in loan review down in Jasper." So I went down to Jasper for about 6 or 7 months. It was, again, a great job. Got to meet a lot of great people, but I decided that banking was not kind of what I wanted to do. A buddy of mine had a cousin that worked for an accounting firm in Champaign, Illinois, called McGladrey and Pullen. Interviewed over there. I remember sitting in a hotel room the morning before, and said, "Hey, God, if you want me to move here, let him offer me the job. And if you don't, close the door." And he offered it to me. Got to go to Champaign for a year. Spent just some neat things happened while I was over there. I was still involved with Chrysalis a bunch from when I came home from school or from college, and had worked 4 or 5 Chrysalises in a row. And it was January of 1998, and that's busy season, and I was a bank auditor. I wasn't in tax. So we spent from January 1st till March the 12th, I spent 6 nights in my apartment. We were on the road for basically 2.5 months.
Wow.
So that was interesting. Again, it was fun. It was single, no commitments, nothing like that. But I was asked to be a lay director on a walk during that period of time, and I had to commit to every Saturday. And I told the guy, I said, I can't work. Well, some things happened, and my McGladrey said, "Hey, we would never ask you not to do that." So I got to do work at the Emmaus or Chrysalis team. It was that spring. Kim and I talked. I said that was when I had a phone call with a lady named Kim Wagler, who now is Kim Wagler Parsons. And she was just getting, it was kind of a blind setup. So a lot of things happened in that 97, 98 year that really impacted my life. And then that after tax season, Dad and Randy had said, "Hey, we need some help at home." And my goal was always to come back. And like I said before, I missed not being able to just walk down the street and be able to say hey to people. Yeah. So August, I think it was the first day of August of 1998, I started back with, it was Parsons Install at that time. And it's kind of set me on the road to where we are today. Yep. And I was glad to be on.
So So Pete, you talked about Kim and getting a phone call. Kind of go in, how did you even get introduced? You said it was kind of a blind setup. Like, go to that story and how long you guys have been married, and you've got 3 great kids. But kind of go into that. So now you were in Illinois, you're doing that, and you kind of came back, and your dad said, we need you back. And where does Kim kind of come into the picture there?
I was there was a buddy of mine, his name was Eric Farron, and I met him in Champaign, and he worked his tail off. He worked a bunch of hours, and I didn't want to do that. But we were going to go to a Jars of Clay concert, and he had met the lead singer for Plum a couple years before, and Plum and Jars of Clay were touring. They were in Champaign, so we were going to the concert, and my dad had called me and said, hey, I had a client in this week, and she has a niece that said that needs to meet your son. I'm like, okay. He said, you can call her. Here's her number, but you can't tell her how you found out about her. And I'm like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
So I called Kim one night, and I said, hey, this is Pete Parsons. You don't know me. Don't hang up. But kind of went through the story about her Aunt Martha and my dad. And I said, I've done my background check on you. I said, you might want to do some background check on me just to make sure I'm not some crazy guy. And she did. And Angela Barnard is her cousin, and I'd known Angela for years. And so she checked on her and with her, and she said, it was okay. So I came home, and it was the Saturday night of the NCAA tournament. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do? I love basketball, and I'm going to go on a date on a Saturday, and not going to be able to watch this. So Kim and I went out to dinner at, now I'm in trouble. Mill Street Restaurant in Jasper. And then we went to, again, I always tell people it's kind of funny that we went to a hotel first night we met. We went to the Holiday Inn and watched some college basketball. So that was great for us. And again, it wasn't easy. I mean, we went through some time, and I was selfish and decided that I was probably better off on my own for a while. And then I circled back around and kind of got smart again and asked Kim out again. And she hesitantly said yes, because one of her friends said, hey, you need to give him another chance. That was the fall. That was probably the summer of '99. We, again, we kind of joke about this. It was her cousin's wedding, and she was a bridesmaid, and I was in my, my suit out in the hall, out in the parking lot, and I saw Kim. I was like, you know what? That's my girl. So started talking to her. I mean, getting serious then, and had a great conversation with a buddy of mine, Ron Knapp, and he kind of helped me get through some stuff. And it was again, we didn't know what was going to happen with Y2K, and we had a youth retreat on a sleepover at the Methodist Church on New Year's Eve, December 31st, obviously, and told Kim I loved her, proposed to her in February. She obviously said yes. We got married that December 16th of 2000 in a blizzard. We made it to our, we got, I said, as long as we're married and we get to our honeymoon, I said, it's a successful day. The problem was she was in dental school. So she still had a year and a half when we got married. So for a year and a half, she was living in Indianapolis. I was living in Washington. So we were kind of doing this long distance relationship. I kind of say that we kind of eased into marriage. She came home in 2002. She bought a dental practice, Dr. McLaren's dental practice. And then our first son, Simon, was born May of 2003. So it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Although I was 32 at the time, so that's not quick. I was getting older. I didn't want to wait too long. And a couple years later, we had a son named Elijah. And then 4 years after that, we had Lear. And I always thought that babies, they were pretty easy. Well, for us, it wasn't that easy. I mean, we had some struggles during the way, and all of her pregnancies didn't come through, and but we're blessed to have 3 kids that are really good kids.
Yeah.
Blessed.
And you guys, both you and your wife, I mean, you guys run 2 separate businesses, and a household, and everything else that you do in the community. How do you 2 stay just on top of everything? Because, and I know right now everything's kind of crazy, but on a normal year, like what do you guys do? There has to be some communication, goods and bads, that happen, and some learning curves that have taken place over the years.
Well, I will tell you, it's hard. Again, I think one person owning a business, there's stress. 2 people owning 2 separate businesses, I mean, there's a lot of stress. And then you throw in 3 kids. And I think the thing that has always kept us focused, though, is, and again, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but it's our relationship with Christ. Period. I grew up in a family that we never raised our voice. Kim grew up in a family that their voices were raised. So our household is typically a fairly loud household. I would like to say that it's all, 4-leaf clovers and rainbows, but there's days when it's hard. There are days when it's hard, and I didn't know that was part of marriage. And but I think there's just always been commitment there. And there's been it's been a continual focus on him. And I think, this will be kind of funny. So 9 months before Lear was born, we went on a marriage conference, and we went to a thing called, it was a weekend to remember. It's put on by Family Life, and it was in Louisville, and a friend of ours asked us to go, and it was just neat because, I mean, there were some things that were just said that were really, really powerful. And one is your spouse is not your enemy, and that you'll work together. You work as a team. It's not 50-50, it's 100-100. And there's communication, and you have to continue to talk. And it's not easy, but the benefits are eternal. So we came back from that, and we said, hey, it'd be neat to be able to do something like that on our own, like bring that back to the community. So we had the Art of Marriage. They came out with a publication or a video conference. So we did one of those. Before we put on one of those, we kind of marriage has been important to us, and other marriages have been important to us. And it seems like whenever we do something like that, it seems like Satan just attacks. Mm-hmm. And but it's been really good for not only for, I think, for our communities, but I think it's been really good for us because it really kind of focuses us back. The last one we're just completing is one by Francis Chan. It's You and Me Forever, and it's really it talks about marriage, but it's really talking about more of Christ and his relationship, and then bringing that back into your marriage. That your marriage it's eternal. That it's more of an eternal thing than a life thing. And I'll answer your question about how we do things, but I think it's just a continual focus on him. And there are times when you get angry, and inside our wedding bands, we've got a scripture. She's got Ephesians 5:22-24, and I think I've got 25-28. And when we talk about submit and respect and love, I think that's kind of how it goes. That, I mean, and I think that's been hard for her because respecting and submission, I think, are a couple different things. But I think I need that from her. I need her respect, and she needs to know that I love her. And there are days when there's been days where I almost say didn't want to, but I knew that I have to. And God has put that on my heart, and he makes me submit to him so that I will to love her the way that Christ loved the church. And how do you put things in perspective, and how do you not let stresses get in the way? And I think that's been our focus, is that it's all about him. Do we do it perfect every day? No, Do we do it? I mean, but I think we continually try. And I mean, I think you can tell when we are more focused on him and when we're not, because I think that affects the way our relationship works.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some, because one of the things you talked about was just like, it's not always rainbows and unicorns and all this stuff, right? So especially from the outside looking in, people look at two people who are running a business, two separate businesses. They both do well in these businesses, and man, you must have it all under control, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You've got all the money you could ever ask for, which you don't, but that's what they look at, right?
I know what you're saying.
And so what's some advice that you could give to some people who maybe even are younger, who are like, man, I'd love to start a business, because I look at Pete and Kim and look at what they're doing, right? They're killing it. They're great. They have no cares. What's some advice you can give them? Like, hey, here's some things that you're going to find that just isn't what you might think business is like.
Well, I mean, business is an ownership, and I really think there's really two kinds of people. I mean, I think there are, and I hope people don't take this wrong, I think there are people that want to be a business owner, and then there are people that want to be an employee. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not to say that you can't put everybody in those categories. Okay. But this is kind of my thought. People that employees want to go to work, they want to do their job, and then they want to go home and leave their work at home, leave their work at the office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not saying that all employees do that, but I'm saying that's kind of a mindset. People that are business owners, they don't leave it at home, I think. I mean, because we're responsible for, not only am I responsible for my household, I'm responsible for all of my employees' household. I mean, I've got to make sure that our business is sustainable, so that every 2 weeks or whatever, they've got a paycheck coming in.
Mm-hmm.
My dad said years, and one of the first things he said was, owning a business is not a 40-hour week job. And that's absolutely true. I mean, it takes more than just putting in your time. There's a commitment there. I think business owners are risk takers too. I mean, they're willing to put themselves out there, and nothing's guaranteed. But I think it takes, again, so those are the things I think it takes hard work. Over the last several years, I've learned it takes a great team. I've been blessed at Parsons and Associates with a great team. The people that I get to work with every day, they're just good people. And a few years ago, I had a tax appointment with a guy named, his name is Edie Rawls. And typically when my tax appointment, she comes in, they give me their stuff, and I have got my computer and I'm entering their data. And this is the first time I had met him. And so I like to know more about people than just what's on a piece of paper. We were talking with him, and he works for insurance, but so I was like, where'd you go to school? And he said he went to IU, I think, first, and he went to Purdue. And I kind of joked. I said, well, why'd you waste your time up there? And then he said, well, then I also got my master's in divinity at Oakland City. And I just paused, because I was like, that was a time in my life that I was like struggling with, do I want to be an accountant, or do I need to do something different? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it kind of froze me in my tracks. So I stopped, pulled back from my desk, from my keyboard, and I turned and I said, so tell me about this. He said, well, he always thought that he was going to be in ministry. And so we're talking, and he looked at me and he goes, but there are so many more people that will cross the threshold of my insurance office than would ever cross the threshold of a church. And I was like, okay, I get that. And from that, I'd always known that we were kind of a ministry, but from that point forward, I mean, it was almost, we declared it as an office that Parsons and Associates is not only an accounting office, but we are a ministry. And who we are and how we reflect is who we reflect. Yeah. And I think every day, I mean, we try to reflect Christ to our clients. I mean, tax preparers and financial statements, those are things that we get to do. But some of my greatest things that I get to do are get to have conversations with my clients. There was a guy that when I first came out of school, I was 20, maybe came back, I was 28. I'm still young, and this guy comes in my office. He's a big burly guy. He blows up things at Crane, and has a farm in the back hills of Martin County. And he intimidated me the first time I met him. But over the years, he comes in I get to see him once a year. He comes in for a tax appointment. A few years ago, it was about the same time ED was in my office, and we were just dealing with some things. And he'd gotten married, and he was having an issue. His son was having an issue, and I said, "Hey, can we pray?" And so we prayed that day. And this guy, again, he's like 6'3", hands just huge hands. He gives me a hug, and I was like, "That's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's who Parsons and Associates is." Our platform is an accounting office, and we get to do tax returns, we get to do financials, we get to be business consultants. But who we are, we get to share the gospel, and we share that with how we do things. Do we do it perfectly every day? No. Or do we screw up? Absolutely. But that's who we want to be. And my office believes in that. And that's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think I strayed from our original question, but that's for us. That's how we got to be Parsons. That's how we are Parsons and Associates. And I think it goes back to that team. Our team is a bunch of believers, and that is huge. We pray before meals. Especially through this time of COVID and social distancing and all the quick changes, fear. I mean, it's been fun to pray in the mornings, and I've gotten that from other clients that have said, "Hey, you know what? This is what we do." We don't pray every morning, but there were some meetings we get together. I said, "Hey, let's just step back and let's say who's really in control here." It's not a virus. It's not it's not fear. And that's hard some days. But how do you own a business? I think you got to lead. You got to be committed and dedicated, and know where your values are.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are kind of looking at a business, and they see Pete plays golf every Friday. I don't know if you do or not, but I'm just throwing it out there, right?
It's Thursdays. We try to play on
I was close.
You were close.
And look at him. He gets to go and do these things, but they don't understand that just because you're playing golf, that just means that's a few hours out of your day that you have to catch back up on, right?
That's right.
And because, like you said, it's not a 40-hour-a-week thing. It's a nonstop. And what's interesting is people then apply that to their Christian walk also, and they can clock in and clock out on Sundays, right? And that's not what that is in your business or not. And so seeing those things, your core belief system, right, inside of who you are and who's Christ made you, they're not compartmentalized. And just because you own a business doesn't mean that business can operate without the same values, the same belief systems that you have.
Well, that's right. I mean, and I want to be careful saying this. I think God has blessed us, okay? But and when I say that, I think I want to be careful there because God blesses us in a lot of different ways. But I just think he has watched over us, and again, I don't think it makes it any easier, but I think he has taken care of my steps, and I can see that looking back. I mean, I'll never forget walking into my office on November 20th, 2017, and having to tell my office that my dad passed away the day before. And to be able to go from that point and the whole office changed.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, you're thinking, man, this is how God made all this work.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even look before that date on how God was preparing us to be
Mm-hmm.
where we are today, or where we were back on that day, and what he's done over those several years to get us to where we are even today. I mean, having to social distance and being technological to be able to work from wherever we want to work. I mean, I think God has prepared us for this time, and I don't think you know that going forward. But it is awfully fun to look back and say, man, I know he was there.
Yeah, it's really hard to not see God's sovereignty even through the hard times. And you know, me and you know of people who've lost children and at way too young, right? Way too young, and they would even point back to God's sovereignty in that, and it's that's tough. You losing your dad, right? That's not easy. It's tough. No matter how old you are, no matter what's the circumstance, it's not easy to lose people that we love. But then to hear you say, but man, seeing God's preparing, God's hand in all of that, that's a big thing. And that's where some people don't quite understand the faith that we have. And I'm okay and talking about that. And I think a lot of people need to hear this, right? But that foundational faith that we have really carries us. I mean, it is our life. It's who we are. It's the reason why we do what we do. It's the reason why I do what I do. And so it's exciting. So let's say you've got a group of teenagers. You've got how old's your oldest?
He will be 17 next week from today.
That's crazy, by the way. So
it is crazy.
Let's say you got go ahead.
Goes fast.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Let's say you got a group of his buddies all sitting around, right? And for whatever reason, they decide, you know what? They're going to ask you a question and say, Pete, what's some advice that we can have going in? What would you tell a 17-year-old to kind of prepare them?
I will let me take a step back, and because I think you talked a little bit back in the past earlier about how we look at people and we see how we look from the outside and we see that everything looks good. You know, they've got a great marriage. They're, financially they're good. They've got, all you see is just the positive things. And I think I would tell kids, you know what? There's some truth to that, but there's going to be some times that are going to be hard. And I mean, everybody posts their good stuff. I call these like Facebook marriages. Everybody's got Facebook marriages. They want to post their good stuff. And I've mentioned this to a men's group that we all post. We want people to see what we want people to see. And I even would think Satan wants people to see that stuff because he just wants us to see the good stuff. Because everybody knows there's challenges behind the doors. Everything is not always easy. And when we have those issues that we're maybe struggling with, and we look at our friends and they don't have you don't see that they have those, you kind of isolate yourself. And you say, well, what's wrong with me? And I would tell them that there's nothing wrong with you. That's what Satan wants to happen. He wants you to feel isolated. He wants you to feel like you're the only one with that issue, and you're not. And that you just need to continue to look to Christ to keep that value, that you get your value in him, not in what's going on around you. So again, you're going to have struggles, but you're not alone. I think I got that. One of the biggest things about our small group, I think that's what I learned, is that everybody sitting around our small group table, we're all dealing with the same stuff. We're not posting it on Facebook, but we're all dealing with the same stuff.
Right.
And I'm not excited that they deal with the same stuff, but it's comforting to know that I'm not the only one dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same way. I had a conversation with a guy earlier today, and from the outside, everything looks good. But from the inside, there's pain. And unless you know them personally, you're not going to know that. And you're going to see that everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with something that hurts or where there's pain there, and you're really struggling with, did I do something wrong? Why is God doing this to me? Why am I different? Why do I struggle with this? It's because most people do, and you're not alone. So if you would ever have an issue, you need to talk with other people and share and be a little vulnerable. And that's 17-year-old boys are not good with that.
Mm-hmm.
49-year-old men are not good with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's important because I think that allows you to be real. I think that allows you to, because it also allows other people to be real with you,
Mm-hmm.
so that you're not on an island out by yourself. So I've been blessed to have some times with some of Simon's friends, and we have those conversations that, hey, we're all in the same boat. They can look at me and they say, well, Pete, you're 49. You don't know what we're going through. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're going through, because 17 years ago, or 17 years old age was not that long ago. And I know what thoughts are going through your head. And not that they're good thoughts, but I understand them. Mm-hmm. And you're not alone in those thoughts.
Yeah.
So get a core group of friends that you can be real with, and whether they're guys or girls, but you need somebody that you can be real with.
Yeah. Pete, who were some mentors in your life that I'm sure your dad was one of them, but even outside of your dad, that you've kind of built some good habits from, and they kind of imparted a lot to you?
I think growing up in the Methodist church, I think that all of my youth leaders had some impact on me. But when I came home from college when I was 23, came back to the Methodist church in Washington, and a guy that probably maybe asked me the best question I've ever been asked in my life was, hey, do you want to help with youth group? So when I was 23, Al Bubalo said, hey, you want to help with youth? And I think that changed my life. I think that changed my life. Still made a lot of stupid mistakes, still did a lot of stupid things. But at that point, it was, not only am I Pete Parsons, but I'm also somebody that these kids might be looking up to.
Mm-hmm.
I still didn't want them to see everything that I did, but I think that changed a little bit my focus. So I would say Al has been a huge influence on me. There's been a lot of people that I've got to work with that have taught me how to work. A lot of people that I went to church with. Jason Omer is a great friend of mine, and being accountable. He's one person that I've been accountable with, and that thing started on a golf course.
Mm-hmm.
That list would be a lot long if I really wanted to start listing them.
Right.
So, but
yeah, that's good. No, Alan. Alan will pop up a lot. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of people.
So my dad and I would go to breakfast every Friday morning at the White Steamer, and we would that was kind of our morning. Sometimes we talk about business. Sometimes we would just talk about life and helping, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when when he passed away, that they didn't have somebody go to breakfast with on Friday. And this is where Al kind of stepped up again. And he was at the visitation. And he was either first or second in line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back there and gave him a hug, and he looked at me and he goes, Pete, I'll do breakfast with you. So since that day, Al and I have done breakfast on Friday mornings, and that's just been another thing that, where people I've been blessed by people.
Yeah. No, Peter, I just want to thank you very much, man. I know the schedules are different, things are crazy at this point, but thanks for taking the time just to impart some wisdom into us. And I think if people are listening, one of the things that you can pick up is faith doesn't stop on Sundays, but it is your whole life, and it will guide and lead your whole life, whether it's business, employee, friendships, whatever it is. And also, times are hard for everybody, everybody struggles. Everybody has their own issues. We all deal with pride, greed, all of those things, right? So just know that, have some grace, have some mercy, especially with your wife and your spouse, but with other people too, because we all struggle and we all have those things. It's not always what it looks like on Facebook. So I think we can get that from this talk a lot. But Pete, I just want to thank you so much for doing this for us.